Resolution.
On
August 19th at 6:31 p.m.
let the record show that a quorum is present and this meeting has been duly called and notices of this meeting have been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. We will now move on to the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
All right, welcome to the first school board meeting of the school year. We will now move on to our recognition. Dr. Yearwood.
Okay. Good evening, President Fisher, Manor ISD Board of Trustees, Superintendent Avery. It is a great pleasure that I am here to recognize the African American Committee that was able to put together the very fantastic, very enjoyable, and one-of-a-kind program this past school year. But I don't want to steal their thunder because the hard work, the brain behind it, sits right in this room. And I'd like to call up Mr. Renford, Mr. Joseph, and also his assistant, Ms. Singleton, to come up and tell us more about the fantastic program and the success. And remember we said the first time, right, Ms. Thomas?
Yes,
first time. Yes, yes. There we go.
Good afternoon, Board and Dr. Avery. This past spring semester, we put together the first annual African American Heritage program here for the district. In our office, we kind of talked about ways to bring the community together, so our hashtag was Stronger Together. Kind of came from us just kind of joking around saying, man, let's see if we can pull it off. And we actually did, probably bigger than what we actually thought. The event was standing room only. There's a lot of committee members that kind of chipped in too, but I'll let Ms. Singleton kind of talk about the production and what all went into like the small details of it.
Good evening, everyone. So when planning for the Black History program, at a district-wide level, we kind of followed the model of the first ever district-wide Hispanic Heritage celebration. And we saw how that brought out the community, so we want to be able to do the same with another diverse group of students that are in our district. And so that involved a lot of hours of meeting, a lot of hours up here over the weekend, putting together that museum, and wonderful student artwork. Teachers worked really hard. They were really committed. Even the Manor men and women who came and helped serve soul food to put a perfect touch on it, down to all of our performers, people from the community, our own staff throughout the district. And we even had master dance classes where the choreographer Jean-Claude Lesoux from the Ivory Coast of Africa came and taught our K through 12 dancers. So this was a wonderful program. I can't wait to pull it off again with this wonderful, amazing team in the district. And so thank you all for giving us a chance and believing in us.
So if you're in the audience and I call your name, can you please join us up front? The first person, Ms. Clotilde Brinson. Next person, Ms. Chrissy Bryant. Ramon Diaz. Ms. Jaretta Jimerson, who was our MC and did an outstanding job. The Manor ISD Multilingual Department. Multilingual Department, please. Manor Men and Women. We have representatives from Manor Men and Women. Ms. Giovanna Ricaldi.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
Ms. Deanna Smith.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Board member Tamika Thomas. Yes, ma'am. You was on the committee.
All right, Mr. Price.
Last but not least, Ms. Jade Singleton. Again, we want to thank you guys for the support and believing in the arts. Thank you, guys.
Oh, wait. We're forgetting one important person, Mr. Renford Joseph. Yes, come on now. Come on.
Okay.
All right.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Worked in church. Very, very good.
Thank you.
Great job. Thank you.
I know, I was like, the time? Thank you. So the next group of people we're going to honor, this is the epitome of what this community is about. When you see a need, you feel a need, and these three organizations have really taken that motto, if you see something that needs to be done, to do it. So the first person is Mr. Fred Nunn. He's been a part of this community forever, but he started a nonprofit 7 years ago with the idea in mind of feeding the homeless, something very simple, but if you've ever tasted his food, you know they got truly a treat. And he named his foundation after his uncle that had passed away of cancer. But then 3 years ago, he stepped into the Manor backpack drive and took it by storm. I mean, not just, I'm gonna get a couple of backpacks, but over 300 backpacks a year. So we're just super proud of him. And just know that nobody creates change by themselves. So true leaders not only create change, but mobilize people to help create change as well. Congratulations. Oh, I'm so proud of you.
I don't need a hug there, Fred.
I'm so proud of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, big guy.
Thank you. The next group we want to recognize tonight also took part in the backpack drive, but you have literally seen them in almost everything that has happened at Manor ISD over the last year. The Manor Men and Women group started at the beginning of August 2018 with the goal of filling the need of the community being involved actively and engaged in almost every aspect of student life, and they have truly done that by bridging the community together in the school district. We want to thank you for all that you do, and especially your participation in the backpack drive this year. So come on down, Manor Men and Women. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I knew you were out there.
And we can't forget Christian.
Oh, one more. You might as well get in the back.
We're not going to start without you.
Thank you, Christian.
Yeah. So certainly, last but not least, this young man proves that no matter what your age is, that you can always start to make a difference. His organization started around his dinner table. As he was eating, he looked at his mom and he said, at 9 years old, what about the other people who don't have food tonight? What if we start a food pantry? And she kind of was caught off guard just a little bit, because what 9-year-old over their meal says, let's help other people. So I'll tell you to the magnitude of how much Josiah Brown really, with the assistance of his mother, Amelia Brown, took this to heart. So not only did he feed people in his community, but it flourished into an all-out nonprofit with a food pantry which runs out of his home that provides day-to-day nutrition and hygiene and essentials for local residents, including Manor ISD students, suffering from hunger and food insecurities. For the past 2 years, Josiah has not only been committed to providing educational supplies to those who may need it, but he's also collected over 100 backpacks for Manor ISD students and distributed at the Resource Fair. This year alone, he surpassed his goal of collecting over 220 backpacks. And donated all of them to Project Hope. And this is important, ensuring that the homeless students in this community and in this district, displaced students and unaccompanied youth, have the very new and latest backpacks. Josiah Brown has been Josiah Brown and his baby brother. Oh, I'm so proud of you. I'm so proud of you. I just want to let you know, Josiah is not only a world changer for the things that he has done for this community, he is also a recognized scholar at New Tech Middle School and has been recognized on KView 5 Kids Who Care, PBS Reporting Lab, and so many other opportunities for him to not only shine in this community, but around not only our local community, but around the country. But this whole night is about, no matter where, how long you have been in Manor, what your age is, you have an amazing opportunity to unify this community and find something that you love and to do it. So thank you for everybody who supports Manor ISD. And if you are thinking, I am sitting in the crowd and I have done something amazing, then let us know, because we would love to honor you as well. All right? Thank you. Any other board members? Have any other?
I'd like to say thank you all for the hard work and dedication to be able to help our school needs out. We hope that we can continue to congratulate people in the community that are really, really being selfless to make sure that someone else is helped. So we thank you all very, very much.
Yeah, just the same. Thank you so much for all of the organizations here that were honored before us today. Thank you so much. Y'all are on the ground, really a grassroots organizations that come together for one purpose, and that's our kids and our community, and that's something to be proud of, and that's something that we are proud of. Thank you very much.
You want all of us to say something? I don't think you got enough time for me, though. Really, you know, this young man right here gives us the example that we really need to take a look at, and you know, we got to come together as a community. The kids are, you know, we're going to get into the B after in a little while, but the community is going to benefit from all of us doing something like this young man has already done. Thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo everything everybody has said. You guys are amazing, a big example, positive in our community. You always come through for our students, for our teachers, for everyone, and we are very thankful for that. Thank you.
I always say the community defines us, and basically this is our community, and these people, these individuals are outstanding. They reach out to our students. They make sure they have what they need to start school. So thank you again. You all are awesome.
Yes, everybody said pretty much like what I was going to say, but it does take a village, and I see the village here, and especially with those individuals and groups that have represented here tonight, and I appreciate it. And you know, I might be a little biased, but you know, the little one's related to me, so I'm but anyway, I appreciate all of you, and hopefully you can continue to service our kids as well in the future. Thank you.
And I'll kind of round it up, but just thanking the organizations that came forth today about providing opportunities for kids to do great things. And so we're just beginning that fight of being able to do whatever we choose to do as a community, as long as we stand together to make it happen. So again, thank you for what you do for kids and what you do for the students and faculty of Manor ISD. Let's take it to the next level. Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to...
Can I have one more plug?
Yeah.
We also have an amazing mentor program, Miss Becky Lott, stand up. So if you are trying to figure out where you can get in and fit in and help somebody, one kid, 30 minutes a week really needs you. So, Becky, wave again. Just take your name, number, social security number, everything else. Please go ahead.
All right. We'll now move on to our public forum.
Mr. President, we have one speaker, Mr. Nate Thayer. Mr. Thayer, in the interest of fairness and in accordance with board policy, the Board of Trustees will follow these guidelines. Each speaker is allotted no more than 5 minutes. I will inform you when you have 1 minute left. I will also inform you when your time is up so that you may return to your seat. And the board may not discuss or make any decision on any subject. Ensure that all persons addressing the board will have equal time and attention. Your time starts now.
Thank you. First off, I just want to say, thank you for all the stuff that y'all were doing last year. Y'all have made strides. You got to be this time around. I like seeing the lunch program, bringing that out to 4 different schools. That was great, and then bringing the jeans back. But a couple things that I feel are still kind of unresolved from last year. One of them for me is the fall break. I'm not an avid supporter of the fall break. One of the reasons why is it causes parents to have to take off from work. It costs them money. And probably the biggest reason why is there is no programming. I've talked with Dr. Avery about this before. You want to be an innovator about a fall break. You need to innovate programs for these kids to be doing. That way parents have options other than just taking off work and pulling money out of their pocket to make sure that the kids are watched during this time period. So I challenge y'all to find those programs that these students can go to during this time off. Not everybody has the luxury to be able to go out on vacation, to Disneyland or to the coast during this time frame. People got to work. There's reasons you may not be able to take off, and it'll affect us in the long run. So please look at that. The other thing I want to talk about is STAR testing. I had a rude awakening last year. I had a boy who came out of 3rd grade. He was in the 93rd percentile for math. He was way up there. And he ended last year with being in the 45th percentile. It's a drastic drop. Unacceptable. Period. Odd thing is he still beat out his campus average for the test, which tells me there's something wrong at that campus. And I know that there's things that are being changed, being worked on, but it's a rude wake-up call because I got a daughter who's getting ready to enter the 4th grade right now, coming off of, good testing in the 3rd grade like he did. She's in the 90th percentile in math, 99th percentile in reading. So I don't want to see those kind of drops with her. It's alarming. Another thing that I've noticed, too, is on the website, I can look at it and see where the campus ratings are compared to the state average. And for that campus, for the 3rd grade, it's about a 40-point difference on the scores. And for his grade, the 4th grade, there was about a 70-point difference for those scores in reading and math. So please, I'm asking you as a parent, look what's going on. Let's get it solved. Because I don't want to see any student, let alone mine, have to go, through that. This year is going to be a whole bunch of catching up for my boy. And it's going to take some work to get him back up there. And in all honesty, I think for the campus, what you need to look at is not so much can we meet that, state point average, you need to exceed it. You talk about wanting to be one of the places for, everybody to want to send their kids, to school. If you want the district to be like that, then you need those points above it. So let's work out a plan as a community to come up with something. Thank you.
Thank you.
We will now move on to consent agenda. I will entertain a motion for items A through J unless something needs to be pulled.
I make a motion to accept items A through J as presented.
I have a motion from Ms. Cortez. Do I have a second? I have a second from Ms. Thomas. All in favor? The record shows it passes 7-0. All right. Now move on to minutes of the regular board meeting. I'm sorry.
So should
Strike
we,
that.
should we include number
Yeah.
5 as?
Okay.
So I make a motion to accept items A through K.
I have a motion from Ms. Cortez. Go ahead.
Excuse me,
Yeah, we
But
already accepted through J.
that's item 5 in the agenda.
Yeah.
We can't just,
Or
we
accept
can't
item
just
5.
change it. We can say item 5 that should have been K.
Okay. Yeah.
Right,
You know,
and
because
separately
it's
from the
not
original
K in
vote,
the agenda.
because we've already approved A through J. So we can
And now we
approve
need a motion
only
for
this
item
item
5
alone.
that should
I
have
make a
been
motion
K.
to accept item number 5 as presented. There.
Okay.
I have a motion from Ms. Cortez.
I'll
Do I have a
second.
second? Second from Ms. Celadon. All in favor? Let the record show it passes 7-0. All right, we'll now move on to information items. Monthly financial report.
Can y'all not hear me? Hi again, President Fisher and Board of Trustees and Dr. Avery. I'm here in Art's stead. He is out today, and I'm happy that I get to be here. This month, we actually don't have much in the way of the regular column that we're usually used to looking at, the year-to-date actual. It's pretty standard, but the reason I'm so excited to be here is if you'll move over one column to the left, I'm super pumped to present this balanced budget for y'all. Oh, yeah. Yay! So I told Art I would make sure and make a big deal for him, for everybody that worked hard for that, all the principals, all the departments, everybody that worked really hard. I know I've only been here 5 years, but never seen this. I don't know anybody here has ever seen this. If you have, please let me know.
Oh, yeah.
This is huge. It really is huge. So I just really want to make everybody aware that that's the important column for tonight. The other one's pretty standard, a little bit lower than it normally is. We don't get a lot of revenues in July, and expenses pretty much carry on a little bit lower than usual. But again, I'm super pumped to be here for the balanced budget column.
Yay,
Any questions
I'm
for
super
anything else?
pumped too. Thank you.
Hey, Melody, I want to kind of thank you and your team and Art for your leadership. I think one of the things is the hardest part of a school district is the finance department. You have to keep it all together. You have to manage that money and making sure it comes in and out in a way that's going to be very efficient. So again, I want to commend you guys for doing that and making sure that you push the envelope when you want to buy something. You can't really afford it, you can't buy it. So I think that's a great way of being able to manage, and so we want to thank you for that.
And thank y'all. We've been a little bit short with where we are, but we really have a good team. I don't know if y'all get a chance to stop in there, but we really have a good team, and we're blessed with that. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie.
All right, update for district accountability rating, Dr. Royce Avery and Dr. Brian Yearwood.
You ready? Go ahead. I'll pick up at the end, so they'll let them go ahead and start.
Okay, it's in the air, right? It's no secret. But before we get started, let's hear about the nuts and bolts that allowed us to be in this sort of festive mode. So, Dr. B?
Thank you so much, Dr. Yearwood, President Fisher, distinguished members of the board, Superintendent Avery. Excited to be here to share with you this news. You just heard earlier this evening, school is beyond just a little letter grade. You heard the great experiences the student had to work out. I mean, imagine as a 9-year-old starting a nonprofit, making a change in the world. So the educational experience matters. Renford is not here, or somewhere sitting back there. There he is. So you heard him do this great presentation and the experience of students in the fine arts, getting all the recognition. So amazing work is happening here. Great experiences for students. Yet, having said all that, last year we got beat up for a letter grade of a D. If you look statewide, you'll find only one district that's made drastic improvements to get itself, bravo, to a B. So that's a huge, huge celebration. Huge, huge, huge. Not going to go through the details of the computation. We had to explain profusely, apologize. We were 69.2, a few decimal places away from a 70, right? So we're 84.8. We can probably say we're a solid B. If you look at the top, the largest school districts in the state of Texas, there are about 10 of them with 60,000 or more students. We have a grade as good, if not better, than them, right? So that's a huge, there's only one district in the top 10 that's got an A, and that's where we are headed next year. So that's announcing that right off the bat, right? So how did we get there, right? So you look at the three dimensions the state uses. The first one, you see the red one on how well our children are doing. That is at 78%. The next one is how are our students growing, making a year's growth in a year's time. And the next domain within progress is how did we do compared to our peers who have similar students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. And you see we got an 89 there, and they take the best of those three. So 89 is that number. When you take it, 70% of it, you're going to get 62.3. You see that number there. And then closing the gaps again is about how well we're meeting the needs of all learners. And this board, I know I can proudly say when I got here 18 months ago, you were all committed to making sure every child made a year or more than a year's growth in a year's time. We did not say just because you're Hispanic, African American, white, nothing. Every child needed to make a year or more than a year's growth in a year's time. So your commitment is reflected there on the 75, which is 30%, and you compute all of that, you end up with a brilliant 85%, making sure we're a very, very solid B. So here are the scales the state uses. I'm not a big fan of this, I'll fess up to you, but it's still something that's easy for the community to understand. A is exemplary performance. B is recognized performance. So we are, as a district, a recognized performance. So all the halo you see around the district, every campus, every teacher, every principal, everybody in the community that's helped us get there, that's huge as a recognized campus. C is acceptable, 70 to 79. D and F, you can see, is where we're going to get 2 campuses out of that. So here's how our campuses fell. You can see the district was 85. The 2 exemplary campuses of the high school and the elementary school. You see the recognized performance in those 4 campuses, acceptable, and 2 campuses will make sure next year they will not be there. And that will ensure we get ahead of several of those top 10 school districts in terms of size and get ourselves up there. So, Dr. Yearwood, if you can continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. B. Not only are we celebrating the B, but there's also a measurement that looks at a level of excellence, the highest level of performance in particular areas, and they're listed here for you. There are 7 of them. And I'm very proud to share with you where our schools in Manor ISD landed. This in particular, if you would count with me, how many do we see up there? How many schools are listed in each category there?
4, 3, 2,
20, how much?
22.
22. We are very proud to announce that last year we were at 13, and we are now up to 22. The work of our principals, or teachers, or students, or parents, this is the result of it. The collective work of our support of our school board, or superintendent, or team, couldn't be possible. We couldn't have these results unless we had a collective approach to student success. And I'd like to ask if you can bring up the team that contributed to this. Mr. Perkins, Mr. McKinley, come on up. Come on up, come on up, come on up. Dr. B, Mr. Alfredo, where you at? Come on up. They had to put up with meeting in the war room on a weekly basis, going through all sorts of fun activities in the war room. But I'd like for them to just share with you their thoughts just for a minute about, you know, how this feels, what it took to get us there.
Good evening. For me, coming on board, like I shared last week, it was just the collaboration and the teamwork. Every time that we visited the campuses, the principals were willing to give more and more and more. They were looking at their data constantly and being able to talk about that and to share that with us and to share the strategies that they were going to use to improve on their campuses. We were just kind of like their cheerleaders and kind of coaching them along, but really I have to say that the campus administrators and the principals and the teachers, they were the ones who really did the hard work. We were just kind of there overseeing it, and for me, just being a part of that team and then seeing the effort, the results of that is what truly makes my heart so proud to be here in Manor.
President Fisher, Board of Trustees, Dr. Avery. You know, it's so many factors that go into this type of improvement. One thing that's very important is the vision and the leadership that you all have had since day one. You know, Dr. Avery came into our district and had a plan for how we are going to move forward. Created a strategic plan, and then we stuck to the plan, right? And so when people tell me, well, how did y'all do this? It's not magic. It's planning, acting, figuring out what you did well in, what you messed up on, and then doing it again, over and over and over again. And I tell everybody, can our principals just stand up? I tell everybody that I feel like, truthfully, stand up, pal. Truthfully, we have the best group of principals. I go up against any other district as it relates to our campus leaders. They are extraordinary. It is a ridiculously hard job. It's almost impossible. But they are extraordinary in the work that they do to balance organizational culture, you know, student climate, instructional leadership, teacher morale, and then, you know, they put all of those together and at the same time have to take a beating, because you take a beating as a campus principal and pick yourselves back up every single day and keep moving an entire organization forward. They need another round of applause. And then the most important, you know, are our teachers. Our teachers work hard. They not only work hard, they work smart and they work together. And those are the three ingredients that are needed for us to continue to move forward as a district. President Fisher, Dr. Avery, board members, and community and guests, and our incredible principals out on the front line every day, 24/7, with the challenges, but most importantly, with the rewards that come from educating our community and moving our students further, that growth there, moving them further from when they arrived. This way. Oh, thank you, Scott. As the Chief Technology Officer, one of the reasons I was in this job, because many years ago, technology was one of those departments that just kind of did their own thing. They were siloed. They kind of ran the calls and did not do the collaboration. You've heard about teamwork. You've heard about collaboration, and that's what really excites me every day about coming to work here in Manor ISD, because it is collaboration. It is collaboration with curriculum and instruction, with special education, with English language learners, with human resources, with gifted and talented, with music, and working hand in hand with the principals, asking them, what is it that you need from us? We do the principal-led data days, which the principals have to prepare responses to the benchmark assessments on how they're going to move forward, how they're going to relay this information to their staff. And one of the important slides on there is, what do you need from us? What do you need from us going forward? And those are our marching orders, because that's coming from the principals who have disaggregated the data. They've done all the analytics. They've done the Excel, the spreadsheets, and everything. And they said, this is what we need to do. So, Alfredo, this is what we need from you. Got it. We're on it. I'm already convening folks to work on that for your campus. And that's how we all work. Every single person here, executive director, works collaboratively. And again, that's the fun part about coming to work every day in Manor ISD. Thank you, and congratulations, principals and community members.
Again, I think it was just less than 18 months ago, I was here on this podium to accept the position, and I said, poverty is not destiny. You listen to superintendents around the state, well over 1,200 of them, the first thing that comes out of their mouth is, I have 50% of my students who are economically disadvantaged. You ask Superintendent Avery, he'll tell you 75% of our kids are economically disadvantaged. What they're saying is, I'm apologizing for my performance. I've got a lot of kids who are poor, therefore my performance is poor. We don't believe in that here in Manor. We just busted the myth, and we produced this Manor Miracle in just short order to say all kids can learn, our kids can learn, they can grow and thrive at very high levels, and getting a B with just what we've done is amazing. So thanks to our principal leadership there, who took ownership as we came with data month after month after month, and they owned it, they drove it, and we were just supporting them, getting us there. And thank you again, because obviously leadership matters. And our decisions are only as good as the evidence in front of us. So you had the evidence, you asked the tough questions, we asked the tough questions, they owned it, we owned it, and we are here now. So we're very proud of the B, and we are en route to get the A in short order. Dr. Yearwood.
Before we pass it back to Dr. Yearwood, I also want to acknowledge Dr. Yearwood and all of his hard work. Not only does he have to put up with us, and let me tell you, that's a lot, but always focused on student growth and achievement and what we can do for principals and teachers. So thank you for your leadership, too.
Thank you. Thank you. Just want to close it out. It's a team effort. If you work in Manor ISD as a director, as an assistant director, if you work in Manor ISD, please stand at this point in time. Please stand up. Thank you for what you've done. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. It's a team effort. Thank you. Dr. Avery, sir.
And Dr. Yearwood, at this time, principals, stand back up real quick. All principals. I think one of the things that you have to understand is 3 years ago when I came to this district, we sat around this table right here, and I was introduced to the principals, and you should have seen like deer in the headlight. Their eyes were like, okay, what is this man going to do to us? But I can tell you, the stability of these individuals standing right here and the strength of what they do as campus principals is amazing. And so I wanted to publicly say thank you for what you do. Keep up the fight. I mean, the kids deserve it. And again, all you have to ask is, what else do you need from us to be able to help you do your job? So again, thank you very much. Also, Dr. Yearwood and your team, I want to thank you. I mean, one of the things that we're in the war room, we talk about, what is needed. I want to say thank you for the work that you guys do. Sometimes it's a hidden jewel, but sometimes you have to shine that jewel, and it makes it bright again. And so again, I want to what you do, makes children's ideas and hope bright every single day, and I want to thank you for that. But at this time, I want to reveal a video that before the board kind of speaks a little bit. But this is a thank you to you and for what you do for the children of Manor ISD. What do you guys think about the improvements in the district?
You heard it right there. Manor ISD is celebrating this week. District jumped 2 letter grades from a D to a D.
And then the outcomes of that is that B rating. But B is not good enough, so we're shooting for that A.
You want me to start? Okay. Okay, the party's over, right? We're gonna begin a new year, and I can tell, and I'm gonna piggyback on what Mr. Perkins says. We have some of the best talent around. So, like I was telling the principals and the directors the other day, y'all put yourselves in this predicament. We're not going to accept anything less. So the A is our destination, and we still got plenty of work to do. We really do. If we want to reach that A, we got to get better. We got to fine-tune things, and we have to really teach our kids. Thank you.
Well, y'all know I'm going to keep the party started, so I am still excited about the B. We're going to get to an A, but when we looked around and they said, stand up if you work for Manor ISD, I saw the employees stand up, but I didn't see the PTA. I didn't see the pastors that prayed for us. I didn't see all the parents that sit there and do our 99 pages of homework. Know that you are working for us as well. So if you contributed, if you stood up there, if you fought with us to make sure that we did the right thing by your child, stand up. We want to celebrate you as well. You've done it. I'm going to say, I'm going to say, let me say, it takes a village. Thank you to the outstanding leadership team for the leadership that they brought, the principals, the teachers, the students. Know that our kids are working every day so hard to make sure that they are doing their very best. So it is truly a village effort. So we're going to celebrate. Woo! John.
So I happened to be in that meeting the other day upstairs with Dr. Avery, with your leadership team and your academic team. And one of the things that I mentioned to him, and it's, of course, when you see the grade of Manor Middle School, you know, I mentioned to the group that those kids are not failures. They are not. But we are going to strive to help that campus as a team, and it's a beautiful thing to see that, you know, all the community engaged in the celebration of the letter grade that we got, and like Sam says, but we're going to expect even higher things for our district. And again, Dr. Avery, thank you and your team, your academic team, Dr. Yearwood and your team, the directors, parents, and especially the ones that are taking those tests, the ones that sit in those little desks or tables. Those are the ones that are working hard, and I appreciate them all as well. Thank you.
We jumped from there to
I
there.
know.
Okay.
I was expecting
So what I
to
want
go.
to say, this is the team, this is an outstanding team from parents, grandparents, the community, our volunteers, our staff. How y'all pulled it off, I don't know, but I know that y'all are awesome, starting from our community all the way to our staff. And like everybody says, we're not gonna accept anything less than an A. And I know PTA had a lot to do with this, so I know PTA is present here as well as Mr. Anderson. He's here supporting our PTA. So I know we're gonna move forward with this A. And again, from the bottom of my heart, y'all are just awesome, outstanding, and I thank you for the hard work, because I know it wasn't easy. I know it wasn't. Thank you again.
Well, man, a B. We came from a D to a B. I want to start from thanking the teachers that were with our kids every single day, right on, handling, teaching our students, our principals, very, very much for all the hard work. They led their campuses. Dr. Avery, for amazing team that you put here to be able to lead this grand success that we have now. There's many thanks, many people who did a lot. Our community members, like Ms. Janie said and I said, PTA, bus driver, I mean, everybody had a little bit or a lot in getting where we are right now. And of course, we're going to head over to the A. That's our next goal. And once again, I want to thank you very much. I'm very proud from the bottom of my heart, and let's shoot for the A.
Oh, we got this.
I just want to say our detour was not our destination, and that is not our destination. Manor ISD a few years ago, we got so much bad press. And I believed, and we as a community believed, that we could be here, standing here today, and really, as a community, making a difference for our kids, for our community, and for every staff member, administrator, and leader in our district. I am very, very proud of each and every one of you. A few years back, I was saying there is no reason that we couldn't be like Round Rock or Pflugerville. My kids all went to this school district, and I believed from day one that we could be better than what we were. Repeat with me, guys. Our detour is not our destination. Can I hear that from y'all?
Our detour is not our destination.
Thank you so much to our community members for believing in us. Yes. Thank you to the staff and the teachers and everyone from finance to the janitors to our leadership. Dr. Avery, when you came on, you brought a great team around you. And we need to keep a focus, guys, a focus on what we've done great. Manor has done great things. We have a board that is behind our district 100% and only want to see great things. So please don't ever let anyone tell you that Manor is less than any other district out there, because we will be, because we can be, and because our detour is not our destination.
All right, woo-hoo!
President Fisher, I'd like to add something. I also want to thank Dr. Avery. they caught me off guard when they said, I want to thank you and your staff because you all just pulled it together. Like Mr. Perkins said, you came in with a plan. I think it was you that said that he came in with a plan, and the plan worked. And I just want to say thank you so much because that plan has taken us to a B, and I know that you will take us to an A.
And don't forget our balanced budget.
I think we ought to give Dr. Avery a standing ovation.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Thank you very, very much for that.
So, want to say thank you to all the team, the principals, the teachers. I was fortunate enough to walk with this team here that just stood up and go through some data days. So my hat's off to every principal that I sat in and seeing the actual, the hardcore, grueling answers to your data. I think that through the actual data, that they were able to really, really begin to pivot and understand how we take off and really focus. And then from that, our principals challenged our teachers, and then our teachers taught our children. And from that, we've seen great, great gains. So anytime that I hear data days, I love to be a part of it. I know that it's grueling for our principals. Once again, I want to give you a great hand for just literally absorbing it. One thing that sticks out with me, and I think I kind of told this team last week, was I went to one school and it was Lagos. And I went to, not to take away from any other principals' data days that I went to, the different thing that was unique about Ms. Hawkins was Ms. Hawkins, her tests were literally projecting off the chart. And so they were coming in, I think, in the 80s. And she turned around and she said, I see this chart, but I need to know what it takes in order to get to a 90. And so within that was huge because then I know that literally the mindset had changed and that we were on our way to greatness because guess what? We were elevating our thinking. So I want to thank every principal, every teacher, every student, every parent for the dedication in which you've actually put in. Thank you to this team for literally pushing them to be the best that they could be. So thank you very much. All right. We will now move on to my page here, Fieldhouse construction update.
Yay.
Brian. Yeah, it is.
Again, I brought the general contractor, Mackie Price, with Balfour Beatty. He's our superintendent on the job site, and Tom's Troy Spink, the Claycomb architect. And I'm going to let general contractor tell you where we're at.
Board, Avery, good to see y'all. Let me just kind of give you a rundown of where we're at. We are to the point now where the outside of the building is being waterproofed and getting all the insulation that it needs, getting ready for the brick that goes on it. We also are inside doing what we call block fill, which is like a primer on the block, so it will hold the paint that we're going to put on it. And then we're also in the gym. We're done with the tape and the float and texture, and we are now priming it. So the gym is getting very close to being ready for the new floor.
Yay.
So we're getting everything done around the outside. We're starting to bring in all the utilities. That means we're bringing in the water, we're bringing in the power, we're bringing in the data, everything that's got to come into there, the fiber. Everything is now coming into the building. We're about to the point of having it dried in. We're about 3/4 of the way dried in. The roof is on, and they are working their tails off getting the Phase A and part of B roofed as well and getting it dried in. And then it won't be long, we'll be cleaning up, pouring sidewalks, and watching people come in and out of it. Yes, the parking back here, we have, a little issue with knowing where the property line really was, with the fence being on y'all's property. But we got that resolved. We have now got that area cleared. We've got a temporary fence over there to make sure we keep his cattle where they belong. No free beef over here. And, so we are now going to start, cut out about a foot of it, pour our footers, that's going to hold all the soil that's got to go against it. We're going to start all the parking here. So, and as you can see, we've already moved the fence and started prepping that area right now. So,
one of the things that we focused on as well was looking at making the stadium accessible for games that's coming up. So you will see the fencing will change, and we're laying out a design to make a pathway for home team to come through this way. And we're laying out a design so that the home and visitor teams can still perform their task and still can get to the stadium and use it. So there'll still be a little bit of construction, but as you see the pathway that we've created back here, we're going to create this pathway same as we are here, but it'll be wider. It'll be as wide as the road. So hopefully we'll be able to continue to have our events without any disruption. Troy, how about you? Why don't you talk a little bit about where we are with some of our designs and things that we're doing?
Good evening, Mr. Fisher. So board members, we're at the point where we're starting to make decisions to the project that we can do value-added alternates. We've talked to some of the coaches in the athletics department, and we've selected a few items that we've identified just recently to bring to the project as opportunities. Some of those items include items in the weight room. We've added that. We've added an office space to the training area. We've asked them what else they need to do for support. We've expanded the concession stand to allow for sales of prepared items. Mm-hmm. So those are some of the value-added alternates that we brought to the project. So we're looking forward to implementing those as funds come available.
These value-added changes, are they going to change, or they're going to increase the cost of the project?
No, that would be spent from the owner contingency, and we'll migrate some of the contractor contingency to cover them too. These are items that dollars we had put aside at the beginning of the project for items just at this point to add these alternates to. Unforeseen conditions are another one that we've seen in the change order log that you guys actually have as part of your board packet. They're to cover those costs. And now we're at the point where understanding unforeseen costs, we're actually add the availability to put in those value-added alternates.
Good.
Any questions or concerns or thoughts?
So, when you did the additional, ask, you did ask about the band as well and putting all these new amazing instruments we just got. Have we made sure we have a place to put them? If you haven't asked, please ask them.
Okay.
Mr. Fisher, don't tell me something.
Was that part of the field house?
It was.
No.
That's why I was asking. Was it part, since we're doing additions?
I didn't understand that it wasn't supposed to be part of it. It was.
No.
It's not part.
No, it's
not part of it.
Additions
in the
are part of it?
document.
Not the band.
No, not the band.
Not the
The rest of
band.
the part, one, the part of it is?
Yeah, but those are value adds, so then they were like set aside in the actual piece just in case they could add it. So value adds to where they could add like ticket booths or something like that.
Okay, we'll talk about it afterwards.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now move on to board committees update.
I'll start off. Safety and security, I'm gonna get with Ryan Markham to set up a schedule. Monique and Janie, I'll send you emails on possible dates on meeting, for safety and security.
I'll just do a quick update. Regarding MOSBA, we're having an event in September, but we are actually now going nationally. So I'm very excited to represent that organization in Manor at the national level. Also, I wanted to share with the rest of my board that I was selected to be part of the National Policy Institute of Emergency Response and Management by the organization ALEO. They have offered a scholarship to pay for my all expenses, and I will be represent one of 16. I think there's going to be 16 different states representing at this policy management committee in LA. So I'm very excited to be able to represent our little town.
Good job.
And I will keep you guys posted.
Ms. Sarner?
We have a lot to celebrate, just FYI. We had our 19th annual resource fair at the Manor High School on August the 13th. It was outstanding. We had a lot of support. We had Manor Education Foundation present, volunteering, members of the parent committee, parent engagement committee, myself, and other members, and also thank you to Becky Lott and her wonderful staff. They always do an outstanding job. And our PTAs are getting ready. They're gearing up, and they can always look to the parent liaisons for support. They will be available to help them. Also, Manor Elementary Early Learning Center will begin their PTA. And as I said earlier, I'm pretty sure Mr. Andy Anderson, can you stand, sir? He will be right there to guide us. And last but not least, the statewide parent engagement conference will be December the 12th through the December 14th in San Marcos. Manor ISD parent liaisons, along with their parent representatives from each campus, will be attending. And our first parent forum will be held September the 25th at Black Manor Elementary from 6 to 7. And I would like to add that if you are not part of PTA, y'all need to be part of PTA. They support the campuses, whether they buy books or do events. So let's step up and be part of those PTAs. Thank you.
So, since Dr. Mosier left, we had not had a meeting, but we are going to have a meeting very soon. So I'll just keep you guys updated on the policy committee.
That's the policy committee, right?
Yes.
That's why I didn't receive an invite.
Not yet. We don't know yet when. Dr. Avery has to put a person in place so that we can begin to meet again, since Dr. Mosier has stepped away.
So the academic committee is super excited. Ms. Cortez is on the academic committee. Dr. Avery sits on it with me, Sam Separiba. All of the leadership, principals are invited. And what do? We get together and we talk about all the wonderful things that have happened, but all the great things that we look to improve upon. So some of our major goals this year is to write academic policy that Dr. Avery and his team will spearhead. And then also to continue improvement towards the A. So, yay! Woo! So we'll have our first meeting in September. If you don't know, the Manor ISD calendar is amazingly packed. So we're looking for a date that doesn't have 12 million meetings already on it. But just, the team and everybody is so dedicated to not only celebrating the great things, but also continual improvement. So,
That's right.
Yay.
That's right.
And quick update, Facilities Committee, we had a meeting about, I think it was about 3 weeks ago. Everybody should have gotten the notes that were sent out We are scheduled to have another Facilities Committee meeting September 3rd, to where we'll probably just talk about the field house. And and now I guess band. And so we'll continue to keep you all posted with that and what we're doing with facilities. Next.
I had
go ahead.
I had an update for MEF.
Oh, yes.
Manor Education Foundation, I think, well, that's the oldest foundation that we have. I think it was 2000, year 2000. Giovanna? What? 99? Ooh. Well, I remember being on it a long time ago. But anyway, we're going to have our 4th annual MEF Top Golf event. Will be held on October 10th from 4 to 7. Oh, good. She'll be there. Her birthday. At Top Golf in Austin. You are all invited and will receive an invitation to attend our scholarship fundraising event. The Manor Education Foundation scholarship awards were made to 12 deserving Manor ISD graduating seniors for a total of $36,000.
Whoa.
A memorial scholarship was also made on behalf of Alfred Lee Jr. MEF is currently writing checks to the Hindu charities for America Scholarships awardees who are currently enrolled at ACC. They each are receiving $1,000. MEF participated in 2019 convocation by exhibiting, volunteering, and providing decal stickers to all employees and volunteers, along with our Way Manor and spirit items for the event. We also volunteered for the Manor ISD Resource Fair, as Janie mentioned. We will be holding our next MEF board meeting in September 2019, next month. The MEF board members would like to express their heartfelt sympathies on the loss of Lucy Cochran's husband. Ms. Cochran is a current MEF board member and a retired Manor ISD employee. And we attended that also with Janie, and it was a sad event, but something that wasn't really predicted. He did have a history of a heart problem, but it wasn't expected. Thank you.
And if I could, one plug for the Top Golf Tournament, please bring your wallet with you.
And not bear, right?
And not bear. We need a little money. And Miss Lott, will you come up, ma'am, and give us an update?
I just wanted to share that we have 29 board members now. We added 6 new board members at our last meeting. Ben Duperrier, Larry Wallace, Lakeisha Small, Bobby Blake, Brett Silverman, and Timothy Ellison. So they're new members to our foundation, so we're really excited about that. We're going to start our employee payroll deduction program, and that'll start here in probably another, oh, thank you. Oh, sorry. The what? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. That's starting up here soon. The good news for the campuses and the departments is that 25% of those funds will go back directly to them to identify programs or projects that they want to fund. Thursday, September 19th, we're holding our second annual investor breakfast, and it'll be held at our field house, and that's to raise funds for the current year for grants and programs. And then our grants increase in the amount to $750. That will be awarded to individual teachers and initiated programs or projects. And the second is grants will be awarded in the amount of $1,500 to departments and district-initiated programs. But I also want to put a big plug in for Applied Materials, that they announced their awards, and they're awarding the foundation, Johnny Velasco, $7,000 $70,500 for 6 different grant programs. And so we're really excited about that. So we're excited about this as MEF is, about fundraising for this district, and continue to roll the money in. If you know anybody who wants to open their pocketbook, open it up to either one of us. Thank you.
So a lot of great work being done.
The audit committee?
So the audit committee has not met. We need to schedule some time to meet. We'll probably get something on the calendar, same thing. I think we'll try to look for something in September. As you said, Ms. Thomas, trying to find a date. So outside of that, I think we got every committee covered. So we'll move on to item E, getting to know your compensation plan.
Good evening, Honorable Board, Board President Fisher, and Dr. Avery. I have a special guest here tonight who's going to go over some fundamentals of our pay systems with you. I just want to remind everybody that there's innovation happening all over this district, not just academically, but we did the board did pass a very innovative compensation plan this past year that awarded our employees a 4% to 7% of the midpoint pay raise, and we're going to help explain that a little bit tonight. So my special guest is Luz Cadena. She's a senior compensation consultant for TASB. It's an organization that we use every year to try to make sure that we are staying fair market values and at the same time being responsible with the funding that we have as a board and as an administration. So without further ado, Luz Cadena.
All right, thank you. Well, good evening. Thank you. Good evening, Board President, board members, Dr. Avery. It's a pleasure to be back. Basically, for me to speak here tonight after such an impressive, board meeting with the district's ratings, kudos to the district, to the staff, to the team, everybody. So it's just been so impressive, and just wanted to let you know I've really enjoyed being able to sit there and just watch the excitement of everyone. So I'm going to begin by talking a little bit about pay system fundamentals. This is sometimes what we call our Comp 101, and provide some little bit more clarity and information as to kind of how the pay systems work. We're going to start with the pay system goals, and basically the objective of an effective pay system is for the organization to be able to recruit, so being reasonably competitive with your peer groups so that you can attract top talent. So again, looking within that peer group that we identified early on and using that market information to set competitive pay for the district. We also want to make sure that the district is able to retain quality candidates or quality employees. And we do that by ensuring that positions are placed appropriately within the pay structures or those designated pay grades based on not only utilizing market data, which I'll talk a little bit more shortly, but also looking at the job and the job value. So looking at what are the levels of skill, effort, responsibility for the positions as we assign them to ensure that we are creating equity as jobs are placed, because you certainly want jobs with greater complexity and responsibility being placed higher to at least value those differences. Then we also want to reward employees for their service and for their work by being able to provide pay increases that mirror your peer group so that you remain competitive within your area. And then lastly, controlling costs. And so we all have to adhere to the financial resources that we have to operate within. And so ensuring that we're using our compensation system and the control points that we set within that to keep us working within those resources that we have so that we don't overspend or overpay or underpay for jobs. So we use market data, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what this market data basically means. When we come in, we provide an overview of how jobs compared to the market median of your peer districts. And we use the market median because that statistical measure basically removes the influence of the extreme outliers, the highs and the lows. And so we use that middlemost number or set of data elements so that if we have some districts that may be a high influencer or a very low influencer, it's not changing the market significantly. So the market data serves in two major ways for us when we start working with districts, in that it allows us to get a snapshot of the market competitiveness of pay for the district for those jobs that we benchmark. Then it also allows us to use the data, those market median values for benchmark jobs, and reconnect, or what I sometimes call that anchor points, your midpoints. Anchor your midpoints back to the median values for those benchmark jobs that we've used in the various pay grades of your pay structure. And so that's how we get you connected or aligned, as we say, back to the market, adjusting those ranges, setting that midpoint, and then increasing the minimums and the maximums. Every job does have a maximum value, and so we realign. That's using the market. One last thing to note is that it may be very appropriate sometimes for some jobs to be above market and some jobs to be below market. And it may have to do with various factors. There may be some positions are very volatile, and so or they're very market driven, and so you have to pay a little bit more competitive for very specialized skills. So pay may be, above the market rate. So in this graph here, market rate means the market value. It also means the target rate. It also means what we want to align your midpoints to based on the market that we're using. When we do the market comparisons, 90% to 110% market comparison we consider to be within a competitive market rate of pay. So if a job is within 10% of market, 90 to 110%, we consider that comparison to be within a market competitive range of pay. If it's below 90%, depending on if it's new to the job, it may be appropriate. If the incumbent is fairly new to the job, it may be appropriate. But if not, then it's low, and we may need to make some adjustments to move pay a little bit closer to market. So it's just kind of understanding the market, what it means, and how these comparisons relate to as to what we need to do when we're using this market data and we're moving people and making adjustments and rebuilding your structures. Okay. Market pay strategy, this is what we're using. So it's a market-based pay system. We align pay based on your market peers, the market median. So the market value is set, that being your midpoint or your target rate of pay. Again, market value being used, and district goals of trying to be competitive within your peers. We set range parameters. These are your minimums and your midpoints. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that range width, but that range width really controls the variance of pay between employees doing the same job. And we have another illustration shortly. And then the goal of a market pay strategy is to pay near the target rate. So remember the slide that we just saw, within 10% of market? That's where we want to try to move pay to be contained or centered around that 10% of market pay. And then lastly, that target rate is adjusted regularly, maintaining or adjusting your pay ranges. Pay ranges for your compensation system, like any other system, needs to be maintained, needs to be adjusted on a regular basis. If it's not, then it begins to be disconnected or not work appropriately or not maintain pay. And then that's when the district starts lagging to market, and it becomes very expensive to make some of those improvements. Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about pay structures. The pay structures, these are your pay ranges. So this is, yes.
I had a couple questions before
Sure.
we move on to the midpoint is what year?
So there is not a set year to get to midpoint value, okay? Because the midpoint is the median market value for that benchmark job. And people, depending on when they're placed within the pay range, so depending on the experience that you bring with you, right, you're placed. And then the progression of pay for employees over time is going to be driven by board-approved pay increases. So if the board does not provide pay increases, what happens? Pay remains stagnant. It doesn't move through the range.
Right.
That's going to impact how long you're going to get closer to the midpoint, right? And then if you give small pay increase percentages, what happens as well? Takes longer to move through the range. So it is a combination of multiple things, fairly competitive pay increases, adjusting the pay ranges regularly, ensuring that the pay increases are stronger than what the adjustments to the pay ranges are, and then being able to make additional adjustments to move people that remain lower in the pay range faster through the structure, and then giving pay increases off of the midpoint. And I'm going to talk about that because the midpoint moves pay of those at the bottom of the range faster. And I've got some slides going to that. So
Before you move on, I have a question as well. So my question is as far as what defines market, when you all are going out there to look at market to get midpoint, are you looking at every single title that we have within the district, or are we providing just certain titles for you?
So, no, so TASB conducts salary surveys, right? And we have a very strong participation across the state. We survey for over 150 benchmark jobs, right? From directors to assistant principals to support staff, maintenance, custodial, clerks, secretaries. We don't have a survey match for every single district job.
Okay.
But there is relationship as far as some jobs may have a relationship or a comparable scope of job or responsibilities, and that's the way we place those jobs that we don't have benchmarks for, because there is not a survey match for every job out there, because some jobs are hybrid jobs. Districts across the state, they have to create some jobs a little bit different. And so as long as we have a benchmark, that's a solid match. We know that job is a solid match, and then we look at the others and look at what are those job responsibilities. But to your question, we have a good representation of jobs that we're able to match, and then the others we slot into based on the comparability of those job responsibilities.
So I had one, something that's related. So your market is actually school district information, correct? Where you're actually...
Primarily because we
Primarily.
conduct that, the salary survey. Then we also purchase non-school, surveys.
That's what I was...
So that's
what I
the
was
private, so that is, those are the, private sector, salary surveys conducted by third parties. And so we have to purchase them, and then we get, market information for the area, that we are conducting the pay study in. And we also collect a lot of, non-school market data, primarily for, jobs that we also see in school districts, but are commonly found outside of school districts and other industries as well.
So as you're collecting that data for midpoint and market, is there a geographic scope in which you're looking at that we would fall in? So, somewhere up North Texas is probably completely different than what's happening near Central and or South.
Yeah, so there is a difference in the market for various different pay groups. So let's say for teachers, we're going to pretty much that market area may be cast a little bit wider. That net is cast a little bit wider within your area, right? So in your market comparison, we looked at the surrounding area districts in the Austin area. Okay? Now, sometimes you are competing though. If you're having to attend job fairs, let's say in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, okay, or in the Houston area, because you are going to want to try to at least get some diversity, attend some job fairs that are outside the immediate Austin area, your competitive market may be a little bit different for some specialized jobs. You may have to look to see, okay, if we go to the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and oh my gosh, the Houston area, that's, pay is really high, much stronger, by the way, than Central Texas, because everybody wants to move to Austin. I think that's the reason that the market is not as strong, because cost of living here is high. But let me tell you, the Dallas-Fort Worth area and the Houston area, their starting pay has really jumped for teachers. So it's a much stronger market in those areas. But if you're having to compete for specialized positions, it's much harder because, it's a much more robust market. But in our pay study and what we looked at, we're looking for the Austin area. For administrators, sometimes you may have to take a look at statewide because you may have to find an administrator, it may not be in this immediate area. So as I mentioned, your market may be a little bit different depending on the pay group. And then for your non-exempts, these are your clerical, these are your maintenance, your auxiliary, operations support. They're going to be more locally. Because they're going to be, they've got to be able to drive in. The commute has to be fairly close. It's not like they can relocate or have a longer commute like teachers or administrators are able to. Okay. So, to your question there.
I have a quick question. So who determines this, or who or how do we determine the specialized skills? Is it something that TASB has listed, or is it something in a board policy, or? So
there are some positions that are a given that the specialized skills. So let's say some technology tends to be one of those areas, right? Because technology is changing constantly, you're not always able to have. And because the market is so hot and so competitive, to be able to bring someone in with the skill set that you may need, you're going to have to possibly be more competitive, right, for some jobs that require that technical skill that you don't have a large number of applicants with. So what determines a specialized skill set is if the population of applicants out there are not large enough to come in with that skill set, and it's very specialized, then that makes that makes those jobs a little bit harder to compete with. It may be somebody who has been working, let's say, in a district where there was a turnaround and a population or, a certain group of student population and was able to make some turnaround changes that you need that person that has been able to do that. That is specialized, but it's defined by the district many times as what they're needing. But it's not something that we have that's defined that says this is a specialized skill and this is not.
So go ahead.
Okay, so my question with, you brought up, well, if someone wasn't, being paid, they had lagged behind in pay, and then the district, didn't give a raise, but then now we've given one, they're still behind. Is there a strategic plan to catch those people up, to get them on par?
Well, there is. It takes time. It can't be done overnight because it's costly, and that is the process of the work that we've been doing with the district, which is the pay maintenance. On a yearly basis, we take a look to see, okay, how do you compare? How do you look and pay? And then what are those positions that continue to be below market that we need to add or target some additional adjustments to continue to move faster or closer to the market?
So a couple of questions. You talked about 150 titles. Do you all have that to where we could see what those titles are and what you guys cover?
Oh yeah, we can provide you the positions that we survey.
Okay, and then with that, with the actual study of data and what you guys are receiving, what is the firmographic detail that you're actually getting? I mean, is it so? We know we're going by title. We're looking at a geographic scope. What are some of the other things that we're looking at to actually get that data so that we can say, okay, this is what market is, and we looked at surrounding districts within a 15-mile radius. This is the director of whatever.
Okay.
What else do?
So let's say, okay, a good example, let's say is a special ed director. Okay, we used 12 area districts in your market mix.
Okay.
Right? And so we take the median of the market that we had from the peer districts, and then we take a look to see what is the salary level of the incumbent that you have. How does it compare to market? Is it within 90 to 110% of market? Is it below 90% of market? Okay, after we apply any increases, does it still remain below 90% of market? Then we need to pull that job up a little bit because we know that the market is always moving. The market doesn't remain stagnant. Districts provide pay increases, employees receive pay increases, other organizations, and so your market's always going to be moving. And so we make those adjustments, but we can't it's very costly to get somebody, let's say they are at 85% of market to 90% of market in 1 year. Because it's not just one person, you're gonna have multiple employees, right? So we want to try to move over time, get people closer to market, but it takes some time. Now, if the pay is below 90% of market, but it's that person's first year, that may be appropriate, right? We may need to continue to monitor that comparison, and if that person becomes experienced over time and that pay still does not move as fast as we'd like it or closer to market, then we may need to make some stronger adjustments, and that's what we do as in the review process.
So the strategy in that is if they're below 90%, if they're at 85%, they've been in that job, let's call it 3 to 5 years, what is the overall recommendation and strategy?
Well, we certainly wouldn't want, let's say, somebody that's been in a job at that level of a job, and that complexity of a job, right? to be, let's say, at 85% of market, 3 to 5 years. That's low. If we can move that market comparison to 87%, and then over time get it into that 90%, then that would be the strategy.
Okay.
Yes. And so again, to what Dr. has said, is providing the pay increase off of the midpoint. Because when pay is below market, it's going to be below 100% of market, right? So that means that the pay is below the midpoint. If you give the pay increase off of the midpoint, you're giving a pay increase off of a higher value. So it's moving the pay of the employees faster. I'm going to talk the difference between that method and the other method shortly.
Okay.
Okay? All right. So market competitive pay levels, we've talked about for your pay structures. Managing pay equity between incumbents. This is the variance of the pay range, the difference between the minimum and the maximum. We want to keep the variance somewhat controlled so that the pay levels of different individuals within that pay range are not too different. If you have very wide pay ranges, you could have multiple people doing the same job being paid very differently. And so we want to control that, bring it in, keep it contained. There should be a difference in pay depending on your experience, but that difference should not be too wide, all right? Providing meaningful career progression, that is having the pay grades or the progression from pay grade 1 to pay grade 2 to pay grade 3 so that you can move up in job levels and be able to have a promotion increase as you move up to a job that's of greater complexity and responsibility. Attracting high-quality new hires. This is making sure that your pay ranges are competitive, your starting salaries are competitive, and then those control points, adhering to those control points as far as the maximum so that you can control your payroll costs. Because, frankly, you know, 85% of most districts' budgets are salaries. And so you've got to have some control points. You've got to have some methods of being able to control those costs as well. Parts of the pay structure, as we see here pretty much, this is just an illustration. I talked about your progression. So the midpoint progression is basically the midpoint of pay grade 1 as it moves to pay grade 2, as it moves to pay grade 3, as it moves to pay grade 4. You want to have a separation, because if you just had a flat structure, then you wouldn't, you know, nobody would want to move to take a job that was more complex and more responsibility if all the pay ranges were the same. Because, you know, why would I want to take a much more you know, higher responsibility job and be in the same pay range, right? So that's how we recognize the differences in the values of jobs. The range control, as I mentioned, the minimum and the maximum, that's the range width. That's what controls the variance. The narrower that we can have some pay ranges, the more contained the pay differences between multiple incumbents. Not all pay grades or all pay structures have the same range width. It's intentional. We keep some narrower, we widen some a little bit more. We don't want to max too many people in the lower entry-level pay grades because they tend to stay in those jobs longer. So those pay ranges tend to be a little bit wider. And then other pay ranges, we try to bring them in because that also affords for some promotional and movement, career progression. All right, range width, this is what I've talked about. This is what controls the variance in pay of different individuals. So you can see the bottom of the range, the top of the range. If we keep it contained, the variance of what individuals can be paid through that range is contained if we control that range width. So distance between minimum and maximum controls the differences in pay between incumbents.
So from what I'm gathering from that is when you give us our data at the end of every year of how we're doing, we don't drill down to individual contracts. It's just on average. It's on
average of the number of benchmark jobs by category. So we presented, this is how your teacher pay compares. This is how your administrative, let's say central administration, campus administration, professionals. This is how your clerical, your auxiliary compares overall.
So there still could be some outliers.
There are some outliers.
Okay.
So in the market comparison, what we saw anywhere between 90 and 110% of market is within a market competitive range. You may have some outliers outside of that, above 110% of market, and some below the 90% of market. But on an average, let's say that pay group may be at 93% of market. Okay. But individual positions can vary within that market group.
So, let me ask one other question. So does the number of, you were talking about responsibility. So say for instance, you have a small district, 400, and they have a director in there, but then now you have a 10,000 district. And so do you have a fluctuation in that also then?
There is a difference in the responsibility of director level positions when we're looking at a small district versus a very large district. And so what we're able to do is tailor the market comparison from, let's say that you're the smallest district within that peer group that you have, right? And that peer group that you have, because you may be a very small district that's surrounded by very large districts. That peer group is the comparison may not be an apples to apples comparison because you're talking about enrollment that may be double the size of your district, and so there is some differences associated with that. So, like a CFO of a small district versus a CFO of a large district.
But how do you?
So we move to statewide market comparison of similar sized districts.
But how do you compete in that particular situation? You're in a like we are. We're against Austin that has 80,000. We're 10,000. And so the level of responsibility isn't there, but still, how are you gonna hire somebody that's competitive at our size district with somebody that's working for the Austin district?
That's correct. That's something that we look into. We use the so we transition to the statewide market for single incumbent director and above type positions when we have situations where we have much larger districts in the peer group. And we do that, for one, we check the market comparison. What does the statewide comparison look like? Because you're more apples to apples. What is the median of that peer group comparison looks like? And many times, that statewide is fairly close to your peer group comparison, but it allows us to be able to say this market comparison is being driven by jobs that are being performed in school districts with enrollments that are very similar to you, and so therefore the job responsibilities are fairly comparable.
But what if you started in Manor 15 years ago when we didn't have 10,000 students? So,
that's where
look different.
That's where the market adjustments, equity adjustments start kicking in. Let's say when you started, the market comparison was very different. You had a smaller market group. Now you're having to be more competitive in pay, and so we may be transitioning to looking at how do you compare. We did use statewide market comparison for single incumbent positions, so that we're staying still more apples to apples comparison based on job responsibilities.
So this is more of a question for Dan, and I talked to you briefly about it, Dr. Avery, where the competitive salaries with surrounding districts with the custodians and food service workers. You know, I know we gave we're starting the bus drivers off at $20 an hour. Now, to look at, you know, surrounding districts, and I talked to Mr. Morrison a little bit about it as well, to see what the other districts are paying our food service workers and custodians, to see if we can compete with those salaries.
So we do the same thing for those other pay groups that we do for the teachers and administrators. We do the market analysis and market comparison. TASB does, we use their comparisons because they're pretty much dead on. So with all those other pay groups as well, we do look at where they fall, and we use, just like she's saying, like the Austin districts, that they have 83 to 85,000 students. We look at what they're paying because that is a market that we have to compete with, although they have many, many more resources and much more money because of the student population they bring in. We still look at them, and we know that we're competing with them. And just like we did that $20 pay, beginning pay for bus drivers, that wasn't a market. I mean, our market adjustment wouldn't have said that we pay $20. It wouldn't have. But when we looked at our surrounding area and the fact that we were losing bus drivers to some of these surrounding areas, we had to make an educated decision about, okay, the market says this, but how are we going to compete with our local folks? And we look at those very same things. I think that looking at food service, looking at some of these skilled workers like electricians, plumbers, some of those real skilled auxiliary folks, carpenters, we really need to continue to look at market because it gives us our education base, but we need to look outside of that sometimes as well because they're super skilled labor, like I think Ms. Cortez was talking about. They're super skilled, and so that gives us the ability to say, okay, these are hard to find folks in these positions, and same thing with our food service. If we're going to continue to attract and retain them, the goal of this whole study and this whole project is to know where we stand and then how do we adjust to retain those employees. And I give you credit because you guys saw that $20 when we brought it to you and you didn't hesitate to do that. So that we're in really great shape with our bus drivers, but we are going to be bringing proposals to you. And just like Lou said, this is a costly endeavor, and to bring it to you piece by piece is really the fiscally responsible way that we do this. We have this market analysis every year. We look at where we are, and the market continues to shift and change, and we start to see that. We bring it to you for you to review it, and then we say, okay, we're seeing this as a market, but we really need to increase in these areas for us to stay competitive. So.
Yeah. Can we look at some of those districts, like Elgin, Taylor, Del Valle, Bastrop, you know? Yes.
So I have one question. Your third R, which is reward, have you guys given us, you know, what your reward strategies may be for being able to reward existing employees that are here, or how we are able to continue to retain and recruit them?
So, are you referencing, let's say, performance, pay for performance?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, so pay for performance is not as common in school districts. We don't see as many districts being able to do this. For one, it takes money. If you're going to pay for performance, meaning that you're going to drive higher performance of individuals, then you're going to have to establish some significant differential in pay or an extra component in pay to at least make that meaningful to the person that you're asking to perform or do more, right? So there are some districts that had established performance pay, but because of the funding issues that we've had over time, except for this legislative year, thank you to the legislature, that funding is just very challenging. So, private sectors, and the employers, and other employers out there, the way that they are able to do performance pay is they've got profits, and if they achieve certain targets or certain goals, then they do have that performance pay, but there's monies, and they are able to establish that, maintain that, and it's sustainable for them. In school districts, what we have found out is that it has not been as sustainable. It's been a challenge, a lot of it driven by the financial position from the state. But there's not a performance system that has been set in what you have here that's been provided.
So one question being then, what is TASB's recommendation for reward?
Well, so as far as rewarding the employees, the board basically has done this by being able to provide the pay increases that you have, what you were able to approve because you are recognizing the work of your employees. That is the reward. Aside from that, if you wanted to create something different, then you're going to have to start, there's got to be a planning associated with that. You've got to define the criteria. It's got to be communicated. You have to train staff. And so it's not something that you can do overnight. Setting up a performance plan, a reward system that is different from what we have has to be taken seriously. The planning behind it has to be very thorough. And the communication piece and the training piece to that has to be very strong.
But Dallas District has been doing it for 4 years, and they've done it, and they've been successful. I talked to the school board member while I was at a meeting, and they're continually doing it. The whole fallacy of what we're talking about here is that we're going to give a 2% or 3% or 4% increase to all the employees, no matter if they're performing above par, at the par, or below par. And when I was with the state, we had a performance, and each individual had their own performance criteria, and if they met that criteria, then they were eligible for a performance increase. Now, if we had the funding, yes, they would go ahead and get that increase. But if there wasn't enough funding, then they had, a very good rating, but there wasn't funding. And that's the only thing that we wanted for us to go and do a very, very good job. We wanted that on our evaluation. We wanted to be there saying we met all the criteria, we set all our goals, we met all of our goals, and so we were eligible for an additional 2% increase. And if the money was there, then we would automatically get it, but it would come from your evaluation. And that's why I think what we have right now is not, it even awards underperformance. And I dislike that. I think what we ought to do is, if they're meeting the goals, great. If they're exceeding the goals, even better. And they should be compensated for that.
Well, but I'm going to say this because all my teaching is going to stand up. So, my thing is with that, I'm all for doing some performance-based, but first we have to get the base right.
That's
so
correct.
when we look at all of these other districts, we got to make sure that we're competitive first, because I have to be able to have a medium that I look around and say that I am valued. Then you can ask me to do above and beyond, but if you're not paying me on value first,
right,
then make sure my check.
Very good point, because that is the critical.
Agreed.
Sure.
Yes.
And that's what the focus was for the board this year, was to get us to the market. Let's equitize who over the years have fallen below the curve. And when we originally started proposing this, we said, we've got to get this right. Got to get the employees where they belong. Once we get the employees where they belong, then we start looking at programs like the Longview Lift, like the Dallas program. There's other things out there that there's even retirement-based programs. There's attendance-based programs. There's loyalty-based programs. There's academic-based programs. So there's so many different ways to reward employees for being productive in the system. But I'll tell you that in my research of all of those programs, you're talking about, and every one of those programs, by the way, that I researched, they all started off with state infusions of money of upwards of $1 million. And some of these small school districts had to have $1 million to start off. So we proposed a compensation plan that was about $2.4 million. When you add a reward program to that, you automatically throw in an additional $1 million to just get it started, and then to maintain it over time. You look at possibly hiring staff to maintain, and then possibly of about another $1 million to 1.2 to continue to do that every year on top of your regular salary compensation plan that, remember, continually shifts, moves, and adjusts to stay competitive with the market alone. So it's a very big endeavor.
But the Dallas district received a grant in order to initially come up to that
Yes,
level.
they did.
Yeah.
They did. And sustainability is another thing. It's, the last thing you want to do is set up performance pay, drive people to those performance levels, and then say, oops, we've run out of money, right? So you want to make sure that it's planned down, like I've mentioned. To Ms. Cortez, for your question about what is specialized skill, right?
Yep.
Bus drivers, as Mr. Veda mentioned, is another job. It depends on the job, the high turnover, how difficult the difficulty that you're having with being able to recruit and retain.
Could
Okay.
you, before you leave, could you provide us this deck?
Just what?
Could you provide us your deck that
Yes,
you just?
this,
Okay.
this, surely.
It's on.
Right?
It's already
We
on.
can do that.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna move along. So adjusting pay ranges, we've already touched base on this, the importance of adjusting the pay ranges to ensure that your entry rates are competitive, your midpoints are moving, and your maximums are moving, so that employees don't max out of your pay ranges. Your minimums keep up and are competitive, and then your midpoints, because you're giving the pay increases off of the adjusted range midpoints, right? So advancing your pay ranges so that people advance through the range a little bit stronger. And then the periodic market checks, that's doing the annual market reviews that we've talked about. So how a pay range is adjusted, this is just an illustration of how an employee's pay moves through pay range. Somebody asked earlier, how does someone's pay get closer to the midpoint or move? So in this case, you can see that an individual is hired within the range towards the bottom, and over time, over years, this pay range is the same pay range, but over years it's adjusted annually as pay increases are provided so that that employee's pay moves through that range over time up to the midpoint and then continues on through the range up to maximum. Notice that the range minimum, midpoint, and maximum are continually adjusted, and that is critical for your system, your to be competitive. I'm going to talk a little bit about employee pay increase overview here. This is talking about how pay increases are modeled. There are typically two methods that are used, and we recommend using the midpoint pay increase. I'm going to talk a little bit about this one. This is the pay increase off of base pay. We tend to find that one more in some type of private sector where there is performance pay or variable pay. But in this one, when the pay increases are being provided off of base pay, the issues with this is that it tends to move the pay of individuals, the lowest paid individuals, slower. Their pay moves much lower through the range to the midpoint than those that are paid stronger. So it gives stronger pay increases to someone that has a higher salary than to someone that has a lower salary. So for example, this is Sally and Billy. One is making $68,000, Billy is $55,000. If you give the board-approved pay increase of 3%, Sally is at the 3% pay increase for her is going to be $2,040, and Billy is going to get $1,650. This creates polarization of pay, meaning that over time, those with less experience become more detached from those that have the higher salary, and so the pay differentiation between people doing the same job many times becomes much wider. Those that are less paid stay clustered at the bottom of the range. They will never see the midpoint, or it will be forever before they get close to the midpoint, okay? If they get the 3% off of the midpoint, they'll both get $1,827. It moves the one that was lower a little bit faster. They're receiving the same increase. It's just moving those at the bottom of the range closer to the value or the midpoint. Okay, the midpoint illustration, this is why we recommend the midpoint. So let's say this is your midpoint. We've got the percent of midpoint. You can see the movement with the yellow dots, and then the percent of pay is the blue diamond. So with this illustration here, if you provide a pay increase off of the midpoint, an employee will generally, if they're below the midpoint, will generally reach the midpoint 2 to 3 years sooner than if you give them the pay increase off of base pay. Because if they're below the midpoint and they're getting a percentage increase off of the midpoint that's higher, it's going to move their pay, advance their pay faster. Okay? If you give it off of base pay, if someone's making $10 an hour and you give a 3% increase in pay, they get 30 cents. If the midpoint of that pay grade, let's say is $20 for simplicity math, they're going to get 60 cents off of that midpoint, right? It's going to move their pay. And those that are paid above the midpoint, they'll still get 60 cents. They'll get the same amount. It's just we move people faster that are clustered at the bottom. All right. That's it. That concludes my presentation. Any questions?
Yay.
All right. Thank you very much.
They're gonna leave the Austin or somewhere where they're gonna get paid. They're not gonna wait 2 or 3 years. That's why we have great turnaround. Not entirely. Yeah.
I'm
excited to get in front of you and just share a little bit about what some of our English learner student achievement data looks like tonight. I'm going to share 3 sets of data with you. And the first is going to be our scores for our English learners for STAR in grades 3 through 8. And this is going to look at 3 years, 2017 through 2018. And overall, just the good news is that we have seen performance increase on average across all of these grade levels from 2017 to 2019. Overall, 13% increase in approaches, 10% increase in meets, and a 4% increase in mastery.
Ms. Meredith, I have a quick question.
The way that this data looks...
Just a quick question before you start. What is the percentage of students in ELL that we have currently?
Currently, district-wide, we have 38%. It might be 39% this year. I'm waiting on those numbers. Good question. So this slide looks at 2017. There's 2 things going on here. For each grade level band at the bottom, on the left, you have your current EL students. On the right, your non-EL. And so what you see is there's some gaps. There's some gaps in 2017 from our English learners and then the non-English learner groups. This is for approaches, meets, and masters, grades 3 through 8. And then in 2018, what we see is that these gaps we're starting to close. We're getting better. You know, we're doing more work. And so for here, you really see the gaps. The first place the gaps start to close is in grades 3 through 5, between the L's and the non-L's. But we still see that gap between, if we can get within 5 points, that's pretty good. That's way better than the state average. But more than that, for grades 6 through 8, we still have a little bit of a gap at those grades. And that's an issue for us. That's also an issue statewide. In 2019, we see the gaps continuing to close, closing the gaps at 3rd and 4th, widening just a little bit at 5th grade, more than we would like, and then 6 through 8, we still have that gap. And so some of the ways that we're working on closing that gap are through our K through 2 literacy initiative. That's a really big, important push for us, as well as our bilingual programming and literacy practices, as well as our sheltered instruction practices for our students in grades 3 through 8. And so we just have to double down on those efforts. The next piece of data that I want to talk to you guys about.
Before you go on that, so looking at this, trying to put my mic on. I feel like I can hear you. But looking at this, what would you say would be the strongest? Because going to some of the events, I've seen students speaking in their native language in 3rd, 4th grade that really does not seem to have transitioned to English. Is there a way that we can stronger support you guys with transitioning students because it seems like the biggest difference, at least from the way I'm reading the data, is 3rd through 5th grade. There's such a strong support in the school system for students that speak another language. However, middle school, that drop quick. And, then you just see this widening of gaps. So is there something we can do to stronger support?
So that's something my team and Mr. Perkins and Ms. McKinley have been talking about for this coming year. We really need to focus on that 6th grade and really look at, they don't have access to those bilingual teachers anymore because we don't have bilingual education in middle school. And so we need to really attend to language while we attend to content as well as culture. And so we're going to be doing a push. De Santiago is going to be working with those middle school teachers at 6th and 7th grade as well to really focus on culturally responsive pedagogical practices and sheltered instruction strategies to help close that gap.
Because, I deeply believe in dual language, having native speakers and English speakers as long as it's at the same proficiency and rigor level. But if it's a point where, you know, you're having these, you know, opportunities to have bilingual teachers in elementary school, and then we're not gonna have that same level of assistance at middle school, what is our exiting program looking like so that students can be proficient in English by the time they reach middle school?
Well, within a dual language program, the goal is also English proficiency.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like the students actually, the research suggests that when students have access to their native language for longer, they become more fluent and adept at transferring and being really attuned to language. And so that's kind of our big push this year. We still have early exit programs in Manor, and we work with all kinds of programs, but we just have to make sure that at the bottom line, it's the teacher. Is the teacher new? How much support does the teacher need? Does the teacher have the resources she needs? And so we have to also factor in that teacher support. We have a lot of teacher turnover, and that's one of the things that kind of, you know, before program type and all of that, it's bottom line, it's that teacher in that classroom. What are we doing to make sure that they can do their very best with the resources they have and where they are developmentally in terms of their, you know, their experience?
Is it a bilingual teacher turnover or just teacher? Yes.
Well, yes, we have.
Back row is saying
Yeah.
We do have bilingual teacher turnover as an issue.
Okay.
And it's an issue in Central Texas statewide. I mean, bilingual teachers are a hot commodity. And I feel like with our stipend increase this year, a stipend increase to $1,000, that's going to help us. Anytime we do things like that, it really, I talked to a bilingual teacher the other day that was saying, wow, I used to work in AISD, but I'm making more money here now. And because of where she was on the step and everything. So yes, of course, things like that really do matter for us. The next piece of data that I want to share with you guys is our dual language one-way student performance. And this is just going to look at our dual language programs. It's a little bit harder to generalize based on this data. The program is relatively new, and the data show different rates of implementation for different campuses. One of the things that we can extrapolate from this data is that teacher tenure and the level of professional development that our teachers receive really does matter when it comes to implementing a dual language program. And so that also positively correlates to improved student achievement. But for third grade last year, this is what we had for BTE, DES, and Shadow Glen. And then for fourth grade this year, with same campuses, just for dual language only for the 3 schools that had dual language one way. And then our fifth grade for our 3 campuses, dual language one way.
So does this mean that the students, I mean, because by third grade, if they're in a dual language, that means that they're proficient in both whatever their native language is and in English?
Well, I would say that many of them are still developing because language is developmental. So proficiency, it's hard to measure that exactly, and STAR is actually not the best indicator of language proficiency. We could look at TELPAS for that, because it really does focus on language.
I mean, you're still going to have to take a STAR test.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, ma'am. And do well. We want to do well. But again, these kids, like for example, this year's fifth grader, they have only been in the program since second grade. And so what we anticipate district-wide is that these scores are going to increase because when I came here, they did it, you know, K through second grade, like all at the same time for that first year of implementation. And what they typically recommend is to do it a year on as we go. And so the third graders have had it since kindergarten, and that's why these scores are, you know, the fifth grade teacher at BTE, he's a master teacher. He's been with us. So that's where these kind of specific variables come into play for this. Okay. The last group of data that I was going to share with you guys is the English and Spanish testers for grades 3 through 5 for the past 3 years. And we have seen a student performance increase since 2017 for English and Spanish test takers who are, obviously ELLs. Here is third grade for the 3 years. So you've got, grade 3, 2017 left, 2018 in the middle, and 2019 on the end. Now, keep in mind that on average, the number of Spanish testers that we're talking about at third grade is about 80 for all 3 years. And then for fourth grade, that number drops down to 40. So we've got about 40 Spanish test takers for the 3 years. And then for grade 5, this number drops down to about 13 is the average. So the number of testers drops off in Spanish as the kids move up. By fifth grade, we're really only taking it in Spanish if, the student is a newcomer, or that's one of the things that, there's lots of factors that go into that decision. It is an LPAC decision that's made in conjunction with the teacher, as well as the LPAC committee with teacher input.
So, by fifth grade, you're saying that usually they'll be taking English tests instead of the Spanish test?
From our experience, sir, the level of academic vocabulary required on the Spanish test is formidable. It's intense, and so kids typically, tend to want to take it and their teachers in English. But if you're new and you're coming and this is your first or second year, there might be a good reason for you to take it. And that's kind of we have lots of guidelines for that process through LPAC, and we're going to really double down on that this year to make sure that the teachers are supported and making the right decision for the kids.
But my thing is not just what language they're taking started. What deeply worries me and concerns is that sixth grade period just doesn't have that level of support. So, I really want students coming out of fifth grade speaking English well enough to be successful in middle school. Not just pass the STAR, but we're not going to have, you go from being very supported to just not having that level of support.
Well, then it's upon us to make sure that our students are better supported at all of the grade levels. And that is our goal too. We want fluency, but within certainly fluency in English, but for dual language also fluency in Spanish as well. And we're putting some practices in place to really monitor that this year so that we can.
But what I was saying to that, but as you know, that our students particularly leave Manor, they'll go to ISD for 4 months, they'll come back. We just have such a sometimes transient group of students to make sure that they're able to be successful, whether they're inside of Manor or
absolutely.
in the school district.
I think the big piece for me is understanding what our challenges are, and to be able to lay those out so that therefore you can bring that to Ms. McKinley, Dr. Yearwood, and Dr. Avery. Let us understand that and see, okay, what do we need to do to invest in our children to ensure that we're kind of minimizing the gap.
Right.
And I think that those are things that are important, because one thing that I do know is whatever we focused on, whatever gets measured, then you start seeing, great things happen. So, but in order for us to effectively help as a board, we've got to understand where those challenges are.
Right. Well, I want to thank you, Board, for your unwavering support of our programs. And I want to thank Ms. McKinley and the Special Programs Department, Mr. Perkins, Dr. Yearwood, and academics. And I also want to recognize my multilingual team over here.
There you go.
They're always on, they like to be on campuses helping teachers. That's what we're all really passionate about, because when we move the needle, it's because teachers sat by kids and helped them get over that hump.
So are they all Spanish speakers over there?
Oh, yeah.
They're all Spanish speakers?
Oh, yeah.
Now,
Somos
just-
bilingües.
just to let you know that I'm not a product of this ELL sort of thing. When I went to school, we didn't have ELL. We didn't have it on first grade. We didn't have it on second grade. We didn't have it on third grade, or fourth, or fifth, and we did fine. So I'm sort of wondering, you know, I'm not one that's gonna disagree with statistics, but really I'm sort of finding it hard because I'm just a product of, hey, learn English, and I learned it as best I could and went from there. So I'm not at the point where you gradually learn English. They just threw you in there and say, no more Spanish, you got to learn English.
I think, sir, some of the things that we're looking at now are just what's changed overall.
Oh yeah.
That there's this new mindset about, you know, we see you are a emerging bilingual. We are going to take your linguistic gifts. We're going to value that. We're going to enhance it.
Sure.
And we're going to make you, develop you into a full functioning bilingual so that you can compete in a global society. Just like the same way, it's just an asset for them, just like the same way that we do with our incredible fine arts programs and our IB humanities programs, as well as our tech programs. We have these kids that bring these linguistic gifts, and we just want to capitalize on it.
Yeah. Well,
and we appreciate all of your support.
But you also say that you have to succeed, and English is the main language of this country.
Well, just for now, by 2024, I think
knows?
Spanish will be the main.
But I also speak Spanish, and I didn't have all the, dual language sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, but I'm going to tell you this. I'm going to say it again and again. Rigor, rigor, rigor. I'm saying you have to have a high level of academic Spanish and a high level of academic English. In both. So I'm not saying get rid of one. I'm saying rigor, rigor, rigor.
Yes.
Yeah.
Rigor, rigor, rigor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I've been practicing on.
Claro que sí.
Hey, I'm only trying to say. No, literally, this is my class right now. I'm doing introduction. So you can do donde, este, like that's what. Like,
you two over
where
there.
do you
You two over there.
Oh, sorry.
The board will now adjourn into executive session at
8:57 p.m.
pursuant to the following sections of the Texas Open Meetings Act, 551.074, 551.071, and 551.072.
Hey everyone, please make sure that you grab cake or cupcake